What's up everyone, it's Bones here. In today's video, I'll be featuring the Nouvellez deck that I've upgraded and used in Alpha TCG's video. But before I begin, if you could happen to click on those thumbs up and subscribe buttons, it would be greatly appreciated as it goes a long way in supporting the channel and shows me that you like content like this. Clicking on those notification bells would also mean a lot as they help notify you when I upload on the channel. So this first replay here won't really be a real replay, I just want to show how the Nouvelle cards work, and we're going to start by using the prep to get ourselves the level 1 and explain kind of what they do as we go, as this is going to be a lengthy video. We'll normal summon the Herald, use its effect as we're going to get the Herald in the graveyard, get our ritual spell for the Nouvelle archetype, at least the first one, as I have the text on the screen, and then we're going to activate it, tributing off the Herald as we'll get the level 1 on board, and then the ritual spell will allow us to get another recipe ritual spell from our deck to our hand because we specifically summoned the level 1. And this one has a similar effect where if you summon the level 2 with it, then you can change the battle positions of your opponent's monsters. But outside of that, everything is pretty standard. Now, the cool thing about the Nouvelles is we're going to see the level 1 gets an excavation effect where if you excavate a Nouvelle card, you can add it to your hand. But the cool thing here is how it interacts with your opponent, and this can be very tough for some decks to play around, which could make it an interesting format call as an engine in my opinion. But we're just going to activate basically any effects. We want to put our opponent's monsters into attack position, and we're just going to blindly activate something that targets the Nouvelle so that we can show that you can tribute a opponent's face-up monster in attack position or one of your own along with the Nouvelle ritual in order to get into another ritual that can basically do the same thing. But I'm going to pull up the level 3 here because there is one key difference between the 1, the 3, the 5, and the 6. So the 1 and 2 activate to tribute an opponent's monster when a card or effect is activated that targets this card or when this card is targeted for an attack. And it's a quick effect that also brings out your 2 or your 3. In this case, we got the 3 because our opponent has no back row that we can pop, and the level 3 lets you draw one, and this is in my opinion why I think the level 3 is the best one of the small ones. But the other thing here is that the level 3 reads when a card or effect is activated that targets a monster on the field or when a monster is targeted for an attack. Quick effect, you contribute one Nouvelle's monster you control and one attack position monster on either field. And if you do, special summon out a 4 or 5. So as the levels get higher with your Nouvelle's rituals, the effects get better in regards to how they disrupt your opponent. But we also get the ability to draw one off of its effect when special summon. So you'll see we'll be able to get another point of interaction here as we're going to send the Entis for the target, as it can target anything on the field for this to trigger. So if your opponent were to imperm one of your other cards, or if they were trying to destroy their own card with Entis, you could still get the level 3 off. So we're going to use its effect tributing off the Herald, and this will get us into our level 5. And as I mentioned how the rituals kind of upgrade their effects as they get higher in level, the level 5 when special summoned by a Nouvelle's monster's effect allows you to target an opponent's attack position monster as a quick effect and tribute it. Then if you do, you can special summon one level 6 Nouvelle's ritual monster from your hand or deck. It also has the cool ability in order to get you a search for any recipe card. So we're going to do just that, as we're going to get ourselves the add for the field spell, and this is basically just a searcher or a recurrer, as it can get a recipe card from your deck or graveyard to your hand, but it also nets you advantage as you're able to draw with it during the end phase, putting back your Nouvelle's ritual spells along with another card in graveyard to get yourself a draw. So now we're just going to show the other forms of interaction here, as we're going to bring out the Geek Boy. The Geek Boy can then use its effect, but we're going to tribute it off with the level 5 as we just can, and then we're going to bring out the level 6 from our hand because we had it in hand. And the cool thing about this one is that you're able to negate the effects of as many face-up cards your opponent currently controls as possible until the end of the turn, which can come up against the Kashtira field spell or any other relevant field spells and continuous spells, traps, and stuff along those lines that you you may come across, as there are a few of them this format, with cards like the Kashtira Field Spell, Kashtira Birth, Branded Lost, and just stuff like that. But that isn't just all, as if your opponent had more monsters on board, the level 6 actually lets you tribute as many monsters your opponent controls as possible if summoned by a Nouvelle monster's effect. Then finally, it also has a quick effect, target one opponent's attack position monster tributed, like the level 5, and if you do, you would bring out a Hungry Burger to finish your full course meal. Now I'm going to go over a few of the replays that were shown in Alpha's video, in which I want to talk about certain matchups and interactions, while also talking about my thought process using the deck. So we'll start this replay here, and I believe my opponent is going first, as he's going to bring out the Ashina, go into the Monk, then he can bring out the Moye, use the Moye's effect, and this will allow him to get a token as he reveals the Taie. He goes into the Chijiao, then use the Chijiao effect as Chainlink 1 and the Moye as Chainlink 2 to get the draw, as he gets the Desires, and then he gets the Emergence off of Chijiao. We'll then see the activation of Emergence to get the Long, and then from there we'll see the activation of Desires, as he's going to draw 2 now, and we'll see double talents are his draws as he pitches the Taie for the Long, and then he'll go into his Baron as he's going to get the 1200 burn and the Book of Eclipse set, paired with the 2 negations off of Chijiao and the Baron. So the build I showed in Alpha's video, which is the one that you're seeing in this replay, has a ton of engine cards built into it, and barely going second cards. And in mid-range formats, I do feel like a build like this can have benefits to it, but I'm going to show the Kashtira replay a little bit later because it zone locks, and there are some nuances that you would want to know when playing a deck like this. As you see, we have 6 cards in hand along with a lot of engine, and we're going to start here by activating the Geek, and we're just really doing this to bait out any stuff our opponent may have, as we're going to activate the field. My opponent is going to negate that with the Baron. I do think that the Baron could have waited for the Doom Broker itself in that case, but we're going to see that I'm going to activate the Dogmatica tricks and get myself 2 searches here, because our opponent does have monsters, and that's something really crazy about this card that you have to remember, as it basically becomes pre-preparation of rights, as we just got ourselves a ritual spell. There's also Necro's Kaleidoscope, and lets us use a card from our extra deck as material for our ritual summons. So we're going to activate the Central of Dogmatic. And this is an important card because it bridges you to all your engines, as whenever you ritual summon anything, you can send an extra deck card from either extra deck to your graveyard, and that's important to note because you can send your heralds and then get yourself another piece of an engine you don't have. So you're going to see we're going to use the Central, and then we're going to send an Entis, which will pop the Chijiao, and that will go off successfully, as because now we can use the Dogmatica tricks as we have a Dogmatica monster on board, and we'll then use the Dogmatica tricks, which will allow us to send an Entis, as we control a Dogmatica ritual monster on board, and that will pop the Book of Eclipse. We can then bring out the Ecclesia. The Ecclesia can then use its effect, which will net us a search for a Dogmatica punishment. And then from here we can activate the Fish Recipe in order to bring out our level 6 Nouvelle, and this will also tribute our opponent's monsters, as we're going to bring out the Hungry Burger as well. We can then go into the battle phase just to get even lead by our opponent, as we're now going to set the punishment, go to the end phase where we can trigger off the Titaniclad, get ourselves the Ecclesia for the follow-up, and then our opponent will draw into a Moye, which he can't do anything with. We'll then pass on to my turn, as I'm just going to normal summon the Ecclesia, get ourselves a Dogmatica Tricks. We can then activate the Dogmatica Tricks, get ourselves a Ritual Monster, as we get the Albazoa, and this is also an important card that I'll be talking about later in this video, but we're going to then activate the Geek Boy, which will give us the extra damage we need to go for a game, as our opponent is only on 4,600 life points, and we have 47 total 100 damage on board. Now, the second matchup is the Kashtira matchup, and this one I'm going to take a very specific line of play, and if you're playing this deck, or any iteration of it, it is very important that you know what to do, else you'll just auto-lose this matchup, as we're going to start here by activating the Dogmatica tricks, getting ourselves the Albazoa, and this is one of the more important pieces along with the Dogmatica tricks, but we're going to normal summon the Herald of Diviner, sending the Herald of the Arclight. This will get us a search for the Chalice Slime, as we'll go into our Almirage, then use the Chalice Slime's effect, which will bring out the Candle. The Candle can then use its effect, which will get us the Fish Recipe. We'll then activate the Nadir's Servant. This will send Caniclad as we get ourselves Ecclesia, and then from here we can activate the Ecclesia from our hand, using its effect in order to get ourselves a search, as we'll get ourselves the Central, and then from here we're going to activate the Central, and I did this because we want to send multiple cards from our opponent's extra deck to their graveyard in specific. We're going to do so by sending the 2 Arise Hearts to their graveyard with the Central and the Dogmatica tricks, because Arise Heart is a major counter to this deck with cards like Nadir's Servant that need to send to the graveyard, banishing effect, while also being able to provide Kashtira a 3k beater that can apply pressure to everything else not named Albazoa. It is also important to note that Scareclaw Kashtira can provide bigger problems because of its ability to stun your opponent when a Kashtira monster attacks. So with the Arise Hearts out of the way, we're now going to use the Fish Recipe in order to tribute off the Candle, bring out the level 3. The level 3 will get us a draw as we get a Fire, and finally we'll use the effect of Albazoa, which our opponent saved the Imperm for, and we've played each other a fair amount of times, and he has felt the sheer power of this card and what it does. Decks like Kashtira and Sprite need all the utility one-ofs pair with their engine stuff, or else they're very limited in what they can do. There is an argument that I could have summoned the Albazoa in attack position in order to play around the Imperm. Because we got rid of the 2 Arise Hearts, we can tribute for Almirage anyways. It's not really much of a problem, as we'll be able to tribute off that Almirage, get ourselves the level 5, and this will get us into what really fortifies this board, as we're going to get the effect to search the Chef Specialty Recipe. So we're going to then set it, then we'll go to the end phase where we can search ourselves the Fleur, and it will give us multiple disruptions with the Fleur. The effect to tribute will get itself into the level 6, and we also have the Omni Negation. From here we're going to pass to our opponent, and then our opponent will start by activating the field spell. We can then use its effect. We'll get them the Unicorn. The Unicorn will then activate. They get the Papayas, and then they're going to activate it, as we're going to negate that, and then we're just going to pick to destroy it. The destroy part is optional, so you don't need to destroy the card. It is important to note. We'll then see them activate the Birth, as they're going to bring out the Fenrir by normal summoning it, and then we're going to tribute that with the level 5 so that they can't do anything funny with it. Bring out our level 6, and then the level 6 will be able to activate as Chainlink 2. Our opponent's Unicorn activates as Chainlink 1 because they're turn player, and this will allow us to tribute off the Unicorn, negate the field spell and the Birth, effectively ending their turn. We tributed their Unicorn, they only have Rise Heart and a second Papayas. This allows us to go to our turn, as we're just basically going to get our monsters to attack position and attack for game because we have more than enough, especially with the Albazoa on board. Now finally, I'm going to show the loss. I'm going to show this for 2 reasons. Benefits and the bad things about playing the set rotation definitely makes you sequence your plays weird, especially when to get into your Libromancer field spell for using the rotation for the Spells one can make it conflict at times, and that's why I've ended up taking it out of the finalized list. Finalized as a little bit more testing can go, but now going to go to our opponent's turn where I think they start. No, we start. So going to start with the Dogmatica tricks. We'll get the Ritual, as we're going to do this so that we can get off our Libro engine. And then we're going to see where the set rotation actually does shine, because we did see the fire and not Nouvell's field spell, which is where the confliction happens when you see the Nouvelle field spell first. Needing access to your Libromance field spell, going to activate the Geek Boy. The Geek Boy can get ourselves the ritual spell. Geek Boy can then get ourselves the field spell as well, activate the field spell, get ourselves the Doom Broker. We can then use the field spell to tribute off the Geek and the Fire for the Doom Broker, and then from here we'll use the Doom Broker to get us our Romancer Trap, and then from here we'll normal summon the Herald of Diviner, sending the Herald. The Herald will then get us a search for the Dogmatica Calamity, and this will get us into our White Knight, as we can send the Titaniclad in order to bring it out, then use the Dogmatica tricks, as we're going to send ourselves a copy of Herald, and then the Herald will get us our level 1, as we were still playing the level 1 at the time of doing these matches. From here, we're going to activate the set rotation, and this is when it works perfect, really, when you can just use the Libromancer stuff first and then use it, but it just doesn't always work out like that. We're going to get our fish recipe, and then we'll be able to tribute off the Herald for the level 1 Nouvelle. Because we summoned the level 1 specifically off the fish recipe, we can get ourselves the meat recipe. From here, I'm going to get the excavation effect, and you'll see that we hit some Nouvelles, as we'll add one to our hand, specifically the field spell, and then we'll set one as we're going to go to the end phase, get ourselves the Ecclesia from our deck, and then we'll be able to use its effect in order to get ourselves the Fleur-de-Lis. I think that this is one of the more standard boards you want to go for when you see all of your engines, except in a more finalized build. I don't think you'll see the level 1, and you'll see the level 3 instead. Still having your White Knight along with the Nouvelle engine going, Ecclesia being an extra body on board with the Doom Broker negation, and the Dogmatica punishment with the Fleur. It's just a lot to play through. See that my opponent actually draws the out. We're going to use the effect of the field spell to put back the Herald into our graveyard, which is another very important thing that you can do in this deck. Also be able to draw one, which we unfortunately draw into the Candle. And I do play a small incantation package, as you probably find that list if you did. It's really just one Chalice Slime, one Candle, and one Talismandra, and the reason for that is because you can just recycle everything with your field spell, and you can also send Omega to the graveyard off of your Dogmatica tricks, your Central, or anything else that sends to the graveyard, and then recycle them that way, so that you can always have your Chalice Slime going. See your Candle, or your Talismandra, then you can always just bring them out themselves, but it's just not the greatest to in a situation like this, which is why I also have such a small count. Really want the rest of your engines to carry. From here, we're going to see our opponent draw the Dogmatica punishment. That's where they drew their out, because now they have the ability to bait out our negation, force the board wipe, is where this game can turn around. If you're not able to get into multiple negations with this deck, your boards become very fragile, which is where I ended up making changes in my list and cut a lot of the fluff out. We're going to use the White Knight here. We'll be able to send a pair of extra deck cards to the graveyard as I send the Entis to pop the back row. Opponent will then go to the battle phases. They'll destroy the Ecclesia. They'll then set 3, as we'll now use our own punishment, popping the Marionetter. We can use the Entis, and now we get unlucky here again, because not only did they get the Dogmatica punishment, but we also hit the one back row that didn't matter. From here, we'll then draw the Talismandra, which was just another really unlucky streak, because again, I only play them at 1. There's only 3 incantation cards in my deck, but we're going to use the Dogmatica tricks to send our Herald. This will get us into the level 2, and this is why I think that the level 2 is still worth playing, if it's like the level 1, in which it has to target it for an attack or card effect in order to tribute off something. The ability to pair with the meat recipe, changing your opponent's battle positions, Sung in specific, a very good example. It's 0 attack and 3000 defense. Level 2 just clears back row, which can be the Kashtira field spell and stuff like that as well. From here we're going to get unlucky again, as we're going to the level 2 and then use its effect to get the pop where I hit the punishment and not the torrential. Hit the torrential, that was my last chance to at least be a little bit lucky here, but I lost like every die roll in terms of what I can draw and what I can hit could possibly imagine, which just flipped this game completely on its head. And then from here, we'll just see the Faker trigger, and because we didn't have much to follow up with after that, we're put in a top decking situation, which isn't terrible, especially considering we still have our field spell, but our opponent has the Silk for that, as we're then going to see the manifestation, give them back the protocol, and this just lets them have their engine going, as they're going to top deck another Faker, which isn't great, but that they'll pass on the protocol, which they still have a Faker, and this will give us a triple tactic thrust for turn, which is kind of interesting as we see the Faker come out, but the problem is that we've already gone through a lot of our engines, so there's not a lot that we can do, especially considering the interruptions that we have to play through, and the fleur-de-lis and all kind of just doing nothing in hand. So we are going to get the Nadir's Servant, and then from here we'll be able to use that, ourselves the Omega to our graveyard, search out the Ecclesia, as we'll put back the punishment, and that was actually an accident. Anything I would have needed to put back Alice Mandra in order to get our Cantation plays going really wouldn't have mattered, since they still had the protocol, and Ecclesia could only do so much with punishment already in the graveyard. Considering I had also ran through my Entis and both my Herald, so it didn't really make a difference, and just a string of unluckiness that really led to this outcome. And we're also even going to see our opponent get really lucky here with the top deck of a skill drain, which is just even more insane. Because I don't want to waste your time, I'll stop this replay here now. The writing is on the wall to the skill drain, especially with the protocol on board. I would like to end the replays by saying that it was definitely a learning experience for knowing that those extra negations do matter. So as you saw, I flashed the Baron earlier in the extra deck. Playing stuff like that is just very important. Pair with your Libromancer, Doombroker, with extra disruptions that you may get. Now I want to show 3 combos along with a pair of test hands. Bridge all these archetypes together, and I'm going to start this one by activating the field spell. We can then get ourselves the Fish Recipe. From here we'll activate the Dogmatica Tricks, then use its effect to get us our White Knight. We'll activate the Preparation of Right, as we'll get ourselves the Chalice Slime. From here we can use the Chalice Slime's effect, get ourselves the Candle. Here we can use the Candle's effect in order to get us a search for the Dogmatica Calamity, as this will give us our access to summoning the White Knight, as we'll send ourselves the Titaniclad. We'll also get access to the Dogmatica Tricks, as we now have a Dogmatica Ritual monster on board, and because we have the Candle on board, we can go into our Nouvelle access, get ourselves the level 3. We'll use the Fish Recipe to bring it out, and if we summon it, we can use its effect in order to draw a card, which the Book of Eclipse is just going to be a random card. Anything I draw for this video will be random. I won't set or anything extra, but I'm going to use the Titaniclad here, get ourselves into the Ecclesia, and then from here we can use the Ecclesia's effect to get ourselves the Fleur, us up with 3 points of interaction, as we have the Fleur with Dogmaticas on board. This can send an Entis to the graveyard, and then this has the Tribute, which can actually lead into a 4th and a 5th disruption through the other Nouvelle monsters that you bring out with its effect. Of course, also have the extra card that you draw. For this second replay, and this one will probably be one of the more important ones, as you'll see how everything can kind of just come together with the Dogmatica stuff, which you play a high count of. I got the Dogmatica Calamity off the Dogmatica Trick, summon the Ecclesia, and this will get us our Central, which is important here because you want to be able to the extra send to the graveyard, as we're going to send the Herald off of the Nadir to get us the White Knight, as we already have the Dogmatica Calamity in hand, we can then get ourselves the level 3, and then we'll use the Dogmatica Calamity, summon out the White Knight by sending the Titaniclad, triggering the Central. The Central will then be able to send the Herald will then get ourselves the Fish Recipe, and now we can use the Fish Recipe, tributing off the Ecclesia, and from here we'll then be able to use the effect to draw 1 off of the level 3. We'll use the Dogmatica Tricks in order to send off a Garuda, and this will get us a second card to our hand. Then be able to go to the end phase, use the Titaniclad in order to get ourselves the Fleur. Already used the Ecclesia's effect this turn. We'll have a Dogmatica on board with the White Knight. Cool display of how you can even draw multiple cards while getting disruptions with this deck. For the final combo before the 2 test hands, and this one will probably be like one of the nuttier ones, and I say that because we have the Nadir Servant and the Herald, as we're able to get ourselves the Dogmatica Calamity, then go into the Almirage, we'll activate the Preparation of Rites, we'll then get ourselves the Chalice Slime, activate the Nadir Servant, use its effect sending the Garuda to get us a draw 1 along with the Ecclesia, and then from here we'll activate the Ecclesia, special summoning itself out, as we'll then use its effect to get us the Dogmatica Tricks, activate the Dogmatica Tricks, then we can get ourselves the White Knight. From here we can activate the Dogmatica Calamity, sending the Titaniclad, special summoning or ritual summoning our White Knight, using the Dogmatica Tricks now in order to send our Herald. The Herald will then be able to get us into our level 3 Nouvelle, as we'll activate the Chalice Slime here, sending itself. If you want to keep the other card in hand, you don't have to. Assuming it's a disruption, then you can, it just depends. But we'll bring out our Candle. This will get us into our Fish Recipe, and now we can tribute off the Candle for our level 3 to give us that extra form of disruption with the Nouvelle stuff, along with an extra draw, as we're now going to go to the end phase, use the Titaniclad's effect, giving us our Fleur-de-Lis during the end phase. I'm going to play this hand exactly card by card twice, but with 2 entirely different directions you can take. Now to start here, I'm going to normal summon the Herald, use its effect which will send an Arc Light. From here we can activate the Arc Light to get ourselves the White Knight. We'll then activate the effect of the Fire, which will reveal the White Knight and get ourselves into the rest of our Libro engine as we get ourselves the Geek Boy. Go into our Baron now, and we do this because we have the extra level 4 for our Doom Broker through the Ecclesia. We'll also be able to special summon out the Ecclesia because we have the Baron out. But from here we're going to activate the Geek Boy, protect our plays also on our 3rd summon, which is nice. But we'll then go into our field spell, activate it, getting our Doom Broker. We'll then activate the Ecclesia, special summoning it out, use its effect, get ourselves the Dogmatica Tricks, as now we can activate the Dogmatica Tricks, get ourselves the Dogmatica Calamity, and then from here we'll activate the field spell of the Libromancers to tribute off the Ecclesia and the Geek Boy for the Doom Broker. Use the Doom Broker to get us our trap card for the 2nd Omni Negate, and then from here we're going to activate the Dogmatica Calamity, sending the Titaniclad, bringing out the White Knight, as we'll use the Dogmatica Tricks now in order to send the Garura in order to get us into a draw, getting us our Albazoa, as we'll activate the Preparation of Rites now, getting us our Chalice Slime and the Dogmatica Calamity for follow-up. We'll then be able to activate the field spell now, and we'll get our Fish Recipe off the Nouvelle's field spell as we're going to activate the Chalice Slime, get ourselves the Candle, as now we can go into those Talismandra, which now we can get ourselves the 3 Ritual of the Nouvelles, as we're going to summon it out by tributing off the Candle, get a draw 1 off of it. To our next combo, the 2nd direction that you can take, as we're going to start by normal summoning the Herald, use its effect which will get us into the Herald of the Arclight, that will get us a Albazoa. From here we can activate the Fire, we'll then be able to get ourselves the Geek Boy, as we'll also be able to get ourselves the level 10 access Baron, as we'll then get ourselves the Geek Boy's effect, use its effect to get us into the Libro field spell. We'll then get our second Omni Negate access through the Doom Broker, as we're going to activate the Ecclesia from hand, use its effect, which will be able to add us the Dogmatica tricks, and from here we're going to use the Field Spell in order to get our Doom Broker on board, use the Doom Broker for the second Omni Negate. We'll then activate the Dogmatica tricks, use its effect to get the Dogmatica Calamity, activate the Dogmatica Calamity, send the Hot Red Graveyard or any other level 12, and then from there we'll use the Albazoa, and then from here they'll be forced to pick cards from their hand and or extra deck to send to the graveyard. I just pick cards from both to show that, but we're going to use the Dogmatica tricks now in order to send Herald to our graveyard, as we have access to the Chalice Slime through the prep, along with a recipe ritual access through the Nouvellez Field Spell, and you'll see that we got the level 5 this time around, as we're going to get ourselves extra disruption through it, but you'll see momentarily as we add the Dogmatica Calamity and the Chalice Slime off the prep, we'll then be able to activate the Chalice Slime, sending off the Dogmatica Calamity, and getting our Talisman Draw. Then we'll be able to use the Talisman Draw, which will get us our White Knight, and it doesn't really matter what you get here, but we're going to activate the recipe now. We got the Talisman Draw in specific because it's level 6, so that we can summon out the level 5. The level 5 will then use its effect, which will get us into our Chef's Specialty recipe. Get us a third Omni Negate. Finally, with all the replays and the combos and hands out of the way, I'll take you all to the deck profile and where it's changed, and the big thing here that you can see is the significant less amount of Nouvelle cards, and it's because compared to the list I used for Alpha's channel, I want to bring out the Hungry Burger and stuff, to take out all the extra Garnets and play what was absolutely necessary, and there is an argument to play 2 of the level 3s, but you can always put it back into the deck with the Field Spell or your Omega, which is just very easy to send. Darks, which can be banished by Bystials, which is kind of annoying, because they take so much space when you don't commit to the engine, you're able to play around Bystials by just playing with everything else. I think another big thing people might to know about is going second, and how it only shows 12 going second cards here with the Fenrir's, the Book of Moons, Book of Eclipse, the 2 Taskings, the Talents. There's also the Evenly, which is a thrust option. Depending on how you view it, really have a lot more going second cards, because the Deer will either bait out something or get an Entis off. The same can be said with the Viner. Matica tricks going second gets you into 2 cards instead of 1. So having the ability to around certain interruptions with a ton of pieces that we play in this deck. Also like to point out that once these cards come out, Chaos Angel should also be legal. We'll also have the Dispatter, have more options, but I do think that Baron is a safe play because you can play into Nib. I really put because I'm going to link down below Lithium's video. It was the combo version of this deck where you actually take advantage of targeting your own Nouvelle monsters, which is another option that you can do with this deck. I feel it runs through resources, also committing a ton of space to a lot of engines and extra stuff. Also eating through your extra deck without much recurrence. Of the Field Spell, that's kind of where I felt want to go that route with it, which led me to this one. I'd like to talk about the second White Knight, and in formats where Albazoa isn't strong, it's easily replaceable with a second White Knight. Formats where Alba is strong, you want to use it as a very strong card. FTK certain decks, especially when coupled with your other sends off of cards like Dogmatica Tricks and Central. All of that out of the way, really get onto the card by card, as I feel a lot of the video kind of did the talking, the choices, and some of the additions that you may see. The going second cards, I guess I can mention the Book of Eclipses because you don't want to get zone locked. Same thing with Book of Moon. The Kashtira Fenrir is nice for going first and second, which is a recurrence with these other cards, which is the reason I put them in here. The Thrust, being able to search Talents, Punishment, Evenly, Preparation of Rites, Nadir's Servant, just felt like another powerful option. You can also search terraforming, which may come up from time to time, but it's one of your weaker options. That's all I really have to say about the deck. 3 Ecclesia, 3 Herald, and all the 1 Talus, the 1 Chalice Slime, the 1 Fleur, the 1 White Knight, the 1 Alba, the 3 Dogmatica Tricks, the 1 level 5 Nouvelle, the 1 level 3, the 1 level 2, the 3 Preparation of Rites, the 3 Nuttier Servant, the 3 Fire, the 3 Geeks, the 1 level 6 Nouvelle, the Doom Broker, forming evenly, the Libromancer Trap, Death Specialty Recipe, the Dogmatica Punishment, the Dogmatica Calamity, the Dogmatica Cabre, the Fish Recipe, the Meat Recipe, the Central, the 3 Nouvelle Field Spell, the 3 Libro Field Spell, Fenrir, the 3 Book of Moon, the 3 Book of Eclipse, the 2 Tasking, and the 1 Talents to round out the main deck. To the extra deck, we have the 1 Hot Red, the 1 Baron, the 1 Omega Heralds, the 2 Entis, the 1 Garura. You can play 2, but if you want to get 2 draws in a turn, or even 3 with your level 3 Nouvelle, you can use the kit. Then we have the 2 Titaniclads, the 2 Aggregators. There's just more stuff you can send for utility. This just basically negates a face-up card on the field. The Dynamond Almirage to round out the extra deck. If you all made it this far into the video, I thank you so much for watching and I hope you enjoyed. If you have any suggestions, feel free to leave them down below. It's Bones, signing out.